We are so excited to announce this. We said the book was coming out in spring 2024, but we're ahead of schedule and it's actually launching October 17th. The Wholehearted Journey, 7 Skills to Develop a Wholehearted Life in a Heartbreaking World is dropping October 17th. Here's the better news is that you can start reading right now for free. At joeljohnson.org, you can download the foreword, the introduction, the first chapter, get into it if you want to and you're enjoying it, or you think one of your loved ones would love to enjoy this book. You can also pre-order it. The ebook is on Amazon right now. So thank you so much for all your support. Head to joeljohnson.org. Please get your free sample, start into it, and we can't wait to see you on October 17th when we have all of it ready to roll and we're dropping it all across the world. Thank you so much. All right, welcome to the Wholehearted Podcast, where we believe that the life you long for, the life that's better than your dreams, is accessed through the heart. I'm here with my co-host. She's incredible. She's wonderful. She's amazing. She provides and throws down the therapy magic like no one else, whatever that is, but it is magical. Shannon White, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. This is our second episode filmed. So you may be even watching us on YouTube right now. And we're very, very excited you've joined us. I'm in kcjohnson.org art studio. I guess we are in. And we want
very talented artist wife.
I know. There's a lot of painting,
amazing.
a lot of art, a lot of feels up in this artist space. And I also want to throw out a huge props to Rowan Rock, to JB, the owner, where we're out of his officing area. And it's just a pleasure to be a part of what he's doing in Concord, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Glad to be here.
It's good to have you here. And today we're talking about the 7th skill. We have been going through the 7 skills of Jesus, how he stayed wholehearted in a heartbreaking world. We finally made it to the 7th skill, a brave sibling. Mm-hmm. And we have, to me, this is the most mind-blowing skill of Jesus. And we're going to learn a lot about who we are as people and how to navigate our internal world and how Jesus did it so well. We're going to become a lot more brave after this episode.
Mm-hmm. I can't wait.
So Shannon, Jesus tells this incredible tale. It's a parable, and it still is known worldwide. I mean, It's probably almost as famous as the story of David and Goliath. I mean, that is beyond even just Jewish scriptures. That has become a human story. Mm-hmm. So Jesus tells the story of this younger son, and this younger son says to his father, "Hey, I want my inheritance now." And the father says, "Okay, I'll give it to you." The son leaves, and this younger brother, leaves. This younger son leaves and blows all of his money on just self-indulgence and very frivolous and unwise. And finally ends up saying, "Hey, I'm in a famine. I am, working. I don't even get to eat as well as the pigs. Man, I wonder if I could just go home and be a servant to my father. They get 3 meals a day. I could at least do that." So he comes home. The father who's there waiting for him runs to his son. The son starts his prepared speech of, "Father, I'm no longer deserving to be your son. Just take me as a servant." The father doesn't listen to any of it. He says, "Go get a robe. Go get a ring. We are reinstating my son. He was dead. Now he's alive. And welcome home." He throws this big party,
I love that picture of an unconditional parent's love.
Yeah, I do too. And this is God's love, and goes back to skill number 1, a beloved child identity. If you haven't listened to that episode yet, you'll definitely want to go back, check that out. But Jesus doesn't leave us there at the climax of the story. We would think, that would be where he ends it, but he actually, the optics are shifted over to the older brother. Mm-hmm. The older brother comes home after being very faithful, diligent, dutiful.
Worked really hard.
Comes out of the father's fields, and he hears the music. they're, killing the fatted calf. I mean, it's barbecue brisket everywhere. And he's saying, what has happened? And one of the servants says to the older son, he says, hey, your brother has come home and your father's throwing him a feast. Well, that just sends him through the roof, which for good reason, right? Like, hey, I've been busting my rear here and I don't even get a goat with my friends, I think is what he said. And now my son, who blows half of everything you had, is back and you're throwing him a party?
Yeah, it's fine he's back, but make him a servant, the brother basically wants.
I mean, yeah, he's like, hey, it's okay if he comes back, but he better sleep out in the servants' quarters because... But the father puts the ring on his finger. He gives him a sign and a symbol of authority, and
celebration.
And the father comes out and tries to talk to the older son, the older of the two brothers, and he says, hey, like, your brother is home and he was lost and now he's found. He was dead, now he's alive. We can bring the family back together again. And the older brother, he doesn't go in. He's not going to go open the door to the party. Because he feels betrayed by his father. Well, how could you do this? You haven't done any of this for me, but you're doing it for him. And in the midst of this story, we find this powerful unraveling and deep, deep parable. And we find that because there's a third brother actually in the story that few people see. Few people recognize, but the story could not be told without this eldest of these brothers. And that person is the narrator, and it's Jesus. Jesus was the firstborn of all creation, the scriptures tell us, and the inventor of brotherhood. And he is the eldest of all siblings, the bravest and the eldest. And he's telling the story to his younger brothers and sisters, saying, listen, this is how your father feels about you. He's on the edge of his seat waiting for you to return. But then there's some other stuff that has to happen. There's some dynamics between an older brother and a younger brother. But here returns this brave eldest brother to bring us both, all of us, our whole selves, the whole family, bring it back together. And this is about to go really, really deep. I'm holding a red pill and a blue pill. That is a old reference that many of you younger ones will not know what I'm talking about. But think about Morpheus. If you don't know that name, you are not cool, okay? Because everyone should know Morpheus and Neo. This is the parable of the early 2000s and late 90s. Embrace it fully right now.
Yeah.
What? Okay, Shannon's looking at me like saying, hey, do you need to pay for a session with me? Because you're about over the edge here. I'm just a little bit excited.
Yeah, I'm not super into the sci-fi stuff. But what it made me think of is family systems in general, where I know for me as a middle child, I listened to that story and, I am the peacemaker and probably would kind of feel the same way the older brother did in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely.
No, I've been here working. You can go, be a servant too.
Yeah, and we all have... kind of younger places in us and, the mature present us who we are today. But I mean, if you think about Christmas, right? Like all of our traditions are kind of getting us back in touch with some of those younger places, those youthful returns,
Yes.
recipes handed down for generations, pulling out the ornaments from, decades gone by.
I've always said the things my parents did best was Christmas morning. It was so magical.
Yeah. And so inside of us, there's kind of this older places, more mature places, but then there's these youthful places that sometimes either get forgotten about or left behind. And you were sharing, IFS, right? Is the acronym?
Right. So before your book, I had always thought of the prodigal son as like you kind of pick your character. Are you the older brother? Are you the prodigal? Are you the father? But what your book does is really help us see that we all have the parts of us. You know, we've all strayed at times. We've all been in the most of us in the parental role, or we've,
that's hard.
Done the right thing.
I was just thinking, I'm sorry. I was just thinking about, there were times in my life where I felt like I had to be the parents, even to my own parents at time. And in younger years, you know, I know that that's kind of a natural sequence of events, maybe during later years. But when you're younger and you're having to parent,
it's called being parentified. Yeah, a lot of us had to do it.
It's actually a thing.
Right. Absolutely.
Parentified. And that's something you discuss with your clients and those who are seeking therapy.
Yeah, you take on the role of, I know for you, there was a lot of dysfunction in the home going on. You probably had to, be the one in control, or to cook dinner sometimes, or, that kind of thing. So what your book does is, I've always thought, you take on one role or another in the story of the prodigal son, but it helps us to see that we can be all of those identities. And that really coincides with IFS, which is internal family systems. The theory is we have all of these roles within us, and they all serve a role.
Okay, so this is an actual therapy, psychological thing that's going on in therapy.
A theory. So there's an exile, which, gosh, talk about the prodigal son, usually represents psychological trauma, often from childhood, and they carry pain and fear. I mean, think about the prodigal son coming back. Like, I know I have done the wrong thing, broken my dad's heart.
Not only that, he experienced severe famine, betrayal from fair weather friends, right? All of that stuff.
Went through trauma for straying, which I think is a great thing to help us remember. God gives us boundaries and rules for our good. We often don't see that. Managers, I would say, would be the father, take on a preemptive, protective role. They influence the way a person interacts with the external world. And then firefighters, which I think really fits the older brother, emerge when exiles break out and demand attention. They work to divert attention from the exile's hurt and shame, which often leads to impulsivity, anger. So we all have these roles.
Say those three roles again.
So there's exiles, managers, and firefighters.
Wow. Which, if you're juxtaposing that with the parable of Jesus, it's the prodigal son, the father, and the older brother who is angry and who is diminishing all that the younger brother has gone through. That's insane. Can I just take a time out real quick here? Okay, I love it when science catches up with the Bible. I just have to say that. I love it.
It's so true. All truth is God's truth. I had a client who was teaching me that she's really into astrology these days, but she is a Jesus follower. And so I just help her to see, like, if you're abiding by He is the way, the truth, and the life, the only way to God is Him, and yet you're discovering new truths, that is just God's truth.
Yeah.
And so, I think we all have these roles inside of us. The older brother, he was really helpful to his dad for a lot of years. His dad was probably so traumatized and grieving by the loss of this son.
Wow.
And yet, as we should be out of our authentic, the way we were, created as parents to unconditionally love our children, of course, any parent
my brain is exploding right now. I know I wrote about this in the book, but I've never heard of IFS before. But
it's developed in the 80s, so you're not that far behind.
Okay, well, I have no response for that. But the fact that the father in that story, he's not out in the field, or he's not managing. He's on the porch. Mm-hmm. He is like sitting there distraught.
Mm-hmm. As any of us would be. hopefully, if our son or daughter, we know a lot of families who are going through that, right? That we hear all the time stories of how it happened this week with a local pastor whose son unfortunately overdosed. And this is a mega pastor. And so, we all hear those stories of that prodigal son. And so that's what boggles my mind, is when you do come from, and we all know we aren't always sure what goes on behind closed doors. But, Rick Warren is an example of this with what happened to his son. Is like, you can grow up in a really functional family and still, because of the trouble of this world that Jesus said we would have, see our children suffer. And that's so, so hard.
Yeah, but when we think about this happening on the inside, that this theory is saying, and that Jesus's parable kind of points to this, that there is this saddened parent because part of the family is seeking the best in the world has to offer, to relief, to get, and probably if you look at the older brother, and this theory says, hey, they're going to be even angry and violent to try to diminish the pain and trauma of the younger parts, right?
Why don't you get it, Dad? Like, you should at least treat him like a servant.
Yes.
And the dad's like, I can't. I'm just so overjoyed he's home.
But when you think about that, okay, so you have a father who's wounded because part of the prodigal has been pushed to the periphery. And probably if you've ever had an older sibling, you felt the discouragement or the abuse or the put downs of an older sibling at some point in your life. And
I always
and being
say,
pushed out, right?
Yeah, two of the most complex relationships I know of are brother and brother, sister and sister. It is very complex.
Yeah, I can see that.
You can attest to that, right?
Yes.
And I can with, my sister. We love each other now, but we were nicknamed the Bickersons. We fought like cats and dogs growing up. It's crazy.
So now taking that and putting that internal. So the younger places in us, we talked about Christmas and just, that wonder that we try to bring back in that time of year, even now as adults, to gain a little bit of that wonder and childhood perspective. But if it's going on the inside of you, oftentimes it's the older sibling role, the mature present us that is driving forward, is working every day, is saying, get it together, to those places that every once in a while pop out and we embarrass us greatly because we've pushed them to the periphery. They should not be showing up, but here they are at work or in our marriage or in a relationship, and they totally embarrass us. And then you've got the wounded father who's not working. He's just kind of lamenting, where is my child? And as any parent would. And so you've got this kind of older sibling who's taken over and now has this disposition of like, I'm doing the work. I'm the one who's putting in the hours. I'm the one who's keeping our family afloat. And so you have this very angry, upset individual who's leading the way, but you've got these other pieces that aren't integrated, that they're wounded and that they're being drug along by this older sibling.
As you were talking, I'm thinking, well, the brother in a way was really healthy, the older brother, because he was basically saying, Dad, don't enable his behavior. He didn't do the right thing.
Yeah.
And yet to any extreme, you just wonder if we followed them past the parable, would the father say, okay, now that the party's over and we've welcomed you home, you will need to pay this penance or work in the field, or, that would be a healthy thing to do,
Yeah. Or just, okay, we have to celebrate when the younger places return home. And this is where psychologists talk about arrested development, right? There's these younger places that actually we stay young, but we see it in the brain as well, right? It doesn't develop in these certain areas. So there's these
Usually
young,
because of trauma.
yeah. So it's these younger prodigal places. And when these memories do start coming back to us, that they should be celebrated, and that the mature, more present us doesn't really want to go open that door. And they've brought a lot of shame to the family, so to speak, to us. We've rejected them, self-rejection, self-hatred. And so we don't want to open that door. But the parable speaks to us and says, you should celebrate the prodigal places when those memories start coming back. They need to be welcomed back. You need to go in that door. You need to reintegrate them. It doesn't mean that that's where it ends. But now when those pieces return home, which Jesus said, I am the healer of the heartbroken. So there are these broken places of the heart. When they return home, you have to enter into the pain, enter into all of those feelings that you have and the failure and the stigma that they've brought to your life or to your family, so that the family can now become one. It doesn't mean that they can stay that way. It doesn't mean that they can be enabled, but we have to celebrate when those things start coming back. They have to be welcomed back in.
Right. And you need all parts of you, right? Because if the prodigal son just remained, well, I've been celebrating, I'm just going to chill and party now and not get to work and kind of pay my dues, that's where your older brother part needs to come in. Or your manager of, okay, now I know there's a responsibility that has to be taken. So we did a whole podcast on narcissism. If the father said, yeah, you go rest for a couple years, you've had a hard time, that's not good either, right? He needs to take some responsibility as well.
Yeah, and skill 1 talks about having the beloved child identity. So the father is restoring that beloved. No, you are always a part of our family. You have the robe, you have the ring. This is your position in the family. But there will be responsibilities when you come back to the father's house. There will be things, because he doesn't want to enable you or to keep you. He wants to heal and restore you so that you can reach your full potential.
It makes me think of the Trinity, right? They all have their own roles. So, really letting those roles work within their authentic place, I think is where, all of that really parallels. It's fascinating.
Yeah, it's huge. I love when psychology, science catches up with scripture. There's nothing like it. It's
cool.
Beautiful. And so all of us, though, I think what we can take away from this skill is the integration. Jesus said, his mission statement, he quoted the prophet Isaiah in Isaiah 61:1. He said, welcome, I've come to heal the heartbroken, to set the captive free, to give sight to the blind, to pardon all prisoners. So he's saying, I've come to take those prodigal pieces that we often push to the periphery of our life, that we banish to the background of our life. And as those memories start to come home, Jesus says, hold on. You've got to enter in. And in Revelations chapter 12, Jesus is speaking to a church. And he says, behold, I stand at the door and I knock. If anyone would hear my voice and open up, I would come in and dine with him. Wow. So what he's saying,
the invitation.
Yeah. So what he's saying is go into the celebration for the prodigal places when I'm knocking. And oftentimes it's our life. It's circumstances in our life that is Jesus knocking. The things we're going through, we don't understand it. And he's saying what I want for you is not for you to just go from glory to glory, from bound to bound, from overcoming to overcoming. What I want you to do, the greatest thing you could do, is open up the door, enter in with me to the younger places, have the reintegration of the family, bring all those pieces back together in IFS. It's let the prodigal places. What was that terminology again? For the prodigal?
It was the exile.
Let the father and let the firefighter or the present mature you, let it be reintegrated in God and within yourself. And that's where the wholehearted journey really comes together.
That's awesome. I love it.
Well, I think that's a great place to stop. Again, listen, we're excited. The Wholehearted Journey the book launches October 17th. So please, you can go. It's on Amazon right now.
It's here.
And you can pre-order the ebook. And you can also, better than that, you can start reading today on joeljohnson.org. You can actually get the foreword, the introduction, the first chapter for free. So just head there right now. You can download it. And we're so glad that you've been along for this journey. Shannon, thank you so much for all your help. Where can people go? Oh, yeah, show notes. They can go to joeljohnson.org and /wholehearted.
Yes.
And you can get the show notes there. If we've mentioned any resources, you can get them there. Not only that, in the show notes, you can download free resources from all of our past episodes. We've got incredible stuff you'd be paying hundreds of dollars to a therapist to receive, but it's just there for free. And for you to get healthier and more whole and more wholehearted. Thank you for joining us. Any last words, Shannon?
No, I'm just so excited the book is finally here. I hope people order it. It really is so wonderful. And the foreword written by John Eldredge, one of our heroes of the faith.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
I know. My mentor from afar, who is now a little bit closer of a mentor, but also wrote the foreword, and it's a powerful foreword, and the rest of the book you're going to enjoy. And
a little teaser, I think our hope for season 2 is to invite some guest speakers. So maybe
Eldredge might be joining us. So you'll have to see for season 2.
Got it.
And once again, thanks for joining us. This is the greatest fun to be journeying with y'all. And till next episode.
Stay wholehearted.